do you understand that we're trying to show a different quality and a whole different vibe? Great Falls is probably not ready for us. We have a great, loyal group of people that come and patronize us every day. Our feedback is that we're getting, fantastic coffee, fantastic service, fantastic kids.
Welcome to the Coffee Experts Club, where we discuss all of the insights, expertise, and drama that goes into making your passion your profession. Our hosts, Aaron, Ben, and Drew, are three coffee experts who have taken their coffee experience and turned it into true expertise. They have consulted with major coffee brands throughout the United States and beyond, providing operations expertise and growth strategy for drive-through openings, multiple locations, and everything in between. So brew yourself a cup and hang out a bit with the Coffee Experts Club.
Alrighty, gents. So here we are, Coffee Experts Club. Pretty excited about this. Pretty excited about who we have today. We roped him into it and twisted his arm. He's on vacation, but he said he'd even come and hang out with us, even while he's on a trip away from the beautiful Montana snow. But Marty, thank you so much for joining us today from Coffee Republic.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. So, the different folks that we have on Coffee Experts Club, it's kind of diverse, but not all of them have had Drew live at their house for a window of time. And you and Robin were so kind as to bring Drew in and let him hang out with you when, he came up there and helped you guys at the grand opening. So thanks for being so generous to our Drew Moody.
Well, we appreciate all the help Drew gave us because, even though we've had the experience, the grand opening was never our own deal. You know what I mean? And,
Yes.
at the not at the last minute, the last couple of months, we kind of analyzed everything and thought, man, we could use some help.
Yes. Grand openings can be stressful. Yeah.
And so when we found out that Drew was available, we thought, oh, this is going to be great. And Drew just stepped up and we had a great time.
Well, I got to say, it was one of the smoothest grand openings I've ever worked.
You should talk about it a little bit to set it up, because I think that not everybody understands. Obviously, so Marty's owner of Coffee Republic, located Great Falls, Montana, one of my favorite towns in all of the world, someplace I love going to. My dad has a vacation home and has had one there for the last 25 years. So I spent a lot of time.
It's an awful place to live.
It's terrible.
Drive right through.
How cold is it right now in Great Falls, Montana?
Actually today it's pretty nice from what I understand. It's about 40 degrees.
Oh, whoa. It was like -20 last week though, right? That's what I was looking at.
Week before last, we saw -37.
Oh.
Yeah, for 2 days. And then we went from -37 to, I believe it was something like -20, and then +10, and then 40 degrees. So like
Isn't
in
it
4
crazy?
days, in 4 days, we went from -37 to 40.
80 degrees variance only in Montana. That's all you have to lead with, Marty. Lead with that. Nobody's moving there, bro. 80-degree variance. No way.
Well, the other thing that people need to understand about Great Falls is that the snow doesn't stick around, because we got, about 12 inches of snow just before Christmas. And I was watching the weather and I was telling my granddaughter, I said, this stuff's all going to be gone by Wednesday after Christmas. She goes, yeah, no way. I think it actually was gone by Tuesday, but
Wow.
because the wind comes in and the winds change. They get what they call Chinook winds. And probably out of all the things that I don't like about Great Falls is the wind. But at the same time, it's our friend, I think, because we don't get stuck with piles and piles of snow that sticks around for months and months and months.
Yep.
It'll snow like the dickens for a few days, and you can bet within a week it's going to be gone. And it is, and we get a lot of sunshine, a lot of sunny days there.
I love that. Yeah, Drew, tell us the story. Tell us the story of Coffee Republic. Catch people up. I know we got to see Jonathan a few months ago on Coffee Experts Club, but catch us up to speed. Tell us how you got introduced to Jonathan, Marty, and then the time you spent up there and how it all went from your perspective. One of the smoothest grand openings, what you just said.
It seemed like a long journey of, chance encounters before it wound up with me staying the night over there and hanging out with them. And of course, appreciate it, man. You guys were incredibly awesome family. I felt like a part of the family by the time I left, I was living with Jonathan and waking up at 5 a.m. and working with you guys. But yeah, you brought me in, I think a month before the grand opening. You guys decided that we'd been having conversations with Jonathan for, a good month or two beforehand, kind of game planning and prepping. And yeah, he brought me in and he'd already done all the hiring and he did a fantastic job. I think we kept almost all the baristas. I don't know exactly how it is as it stands right at this moment, but all the baristas he hired actually were there for the grand opening and trained and ready. And that doesn't always happen. You can hire 10 people and only 8 of them to 6 of them make it to the grand opening. So he done some wonderful work finding some really good people and talented baristas there. And we spent, a good 2-3 weeks just training. And,
I
it
think
was,
that's key, that period of time where I don't know, it's kind of this is what I saw from a distance, was Jonathan kind of stepped, let you take care of training, and you had already had a lot of experience training. And Jonathan's probably his hardest and most difficult part of doing what he does is managing people. He's kind of a softie that way, but he's getting tougher. But I thought that the training that you put forth with these kids was phenomenal. And it taught us a lesson, actually.
thanks, man. I learned a lot too. I learned that I don't know everything. That's what I
Sure.
learned. Jonathan taught me quite a bit too. You guys as well. But yeah, our grand opening, we blew the doors off the place. I don't know. It was busier than I expected but better than I'd hoped. So
I said it's
again,
funny on those grand openings, those early hours when you get a few people trickling in and you think, oh, crud, is this really going to work or not?
So stressful, right? So
It was very
stressful.
stressful. And then I think it was by about 8:30 in the morning, or maybe even a little earlier than that, maybe 7 o'clock, when we had the 29 car line that just kind of stayed there for the whole stinking day. And it was awesome. Of course, it was homegrown, so it was better than any other ones we've ever done,
yeah,
Yeah. I love
personality.
it. The way that you guys stack cars too, I felt like we just twirled them around the building a couple times. Like we had lines going all the way around. That was so impressive. I thought you guys did such a great job with that.
Yeah, we had a 29 car or 39 car, 29 or 39 car line that kind of just stayed constant. And we counted, it was taking them 12 and a half minutes to get to the window, 29 cars back. No. Yeah. 12 and a half minutes. Yeah. So going
It's hard
quick,
time.
whipping through there. They were whipping through. They were a machine, man. It was awesome.
All
It
new
was
baristas,
insanity.
right? All new baristas too, right? Drew, we had maybe a couple people crossing over who had done
Well, no,
some coffee
we
before.
had your son and we had Drew, and
Yes.
that helped tremendously. Our baristas, they would have been swimming with, drinking from the fire hose, but you know what? A week later they were handling business, and we haven't had huge numbers, days where we were just nuts, but we've consistently done very, very well. I'm very pleased with where we're at. And we're in January right now, expecting the bottom to fall out, which is what usually happens in Southern California. And we're seeing a slight dip maybe, but nothing like what we used to see in Southern California. It was literally like, the ghost town. See, it seemed like a ghost town because our numbers would just fall like rapid. And then, February, we see all the guys quitting their New Year's resolutions, and then they come back, so.
That's exactly. They can't stay away for too long.
I think one of the things that I was most impressed about, because obviously we'd had some conversations, then Drew was up there, and then I met you guys up there just to drop off David, for the actual grand opening. I really loved your guys' layout. That was something really different for any of the coffee stands we've ever opened, was the way you guys did your layout. And Drew, I don't know if maybe you want to speak to that and maybe ask Marty some questions around that. Cause I feel like that's one of the most unique things I find about Coffee Republic is obviously you guys, we love what you guys are serving. I know you guys are serving Montana coffee, which is beautiful. We love hearing that. But also, I just feel like your workflow is really unique and really well thought through. So Drew, I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Well, it was one thing that was kind of surprising to me because at the same time we were doing slight De Las Mayas stuff and designing the bar and helping that client out. I walked in there and was like, a bigger bar is sometimes better. I never even thought about that. I was like, we just do what we can. We fit what we can on the bar. And then I walked in there and worked. And I was like, this is actually amazing. This is way better than I was going to do. So I learned that you can stretch the bar out and it actually makes for a better workflow. And I don't know if you guys had, you said you had a really small stand at one point. So going from, tight and hard to breathe and shoulder to shoulder to something like that. Well, what was did you guys have another stand that?
Well, we had Oceanside, which the work area in Oceanside was 8.5 feet by 7.5 feet. That was the workspace, 2 counter, front and back, with a 36-inch or 40-inch gap in between where you worked. And I think, when BlackRock, when we opened it, obviously we were franchised with BlackRock. They had a certain setup in their first couple of stands. This was like store number 7. So they hadn't really gone through all the efficiency stuff, but we only had really one choice. I mean, to set it up in a certain way. The choice was you know, cash register and window person, some small space there to put drinks together, the machine, and then grinding. So come to find out later that they switched the grinders around and had the grinders between the window and the espresso machine, which for us made no sense because the flow of coffee kind of goes naturally one direction. And
Mhm.
we had to be very efficient with that. So when we did Oceanside, well, we did Oceanside as, probably made some concessions because of size. We did Vista, which we had a much bigger counter, but we tried to keep the main working space almost the same because what we found in Oceanside was you could stick 3 people in that stand, and you don't even have to move a foot. You just kind of work in unison. And there was employees that PJ had at the time that they could just get in there, and we were doing $800 hours
Wow.
in this little 7 by 8 foot workspace.
Wow.
We couldn't store a lot of stuff in the workspace, so we had a little storage room right behind the building, and we usually had an extra employee that was running, just restocking everything mid and when things were just crazy.
And one of the things I loved about this location was how you dropped your walk-in right in the center and you were able to walk all the way around it. That's usually for every other coffee stand we've ever opened, that's always kind of pinned in at a wall, pinned in a corner, but I felt like it actually created so much good like energy and space in the whole stand because you do have room to store stuff and you
Yeah.
have that same working bar set up like you're describing, but the stand just breathes so well, man. And I felt like it enables you to drive pretty high volume and have pretty good storage. It seemed like
Yeah,
in
I
the
think we
stand
have a
space.
lot of capacity at that store, and it is a fun place to work and a fun place to be because it's not this, little closet. It was an existing building, so the footprint was already given to us. And when we looked at it, we thought, yeah, we could make this work. It's, we're going to have some extra storage space. And it's actually funny because by the time we put the ADA bathroom in there and got the closet in there for all the HVAC stuff, and that refrigerator that we bought, probably bought a little bigger than we really needed. So by the time we put all that in there, John's going, "Where's all my storage?" So anyway, we still have a situation where, with our especially with our energy drinks, we have to store those all off site because we got so much of it. Not enough room in there to store the energy drinks.
It's cool that you guys are doing your own. Cool that you're able
Yeah.
to,
No,
bag in a box and have your own.
it feels good. It feels good.
Well, there were a couple pieces that I really liked about your building, and of course, the fridge in the center was one. Amazing. The workflow of just being able to spin around and grab your milk that's amazing. And then you have the keg, the tap,
Yeah,
for
that was
cold brew.
that was
huge.
badass.
Yeah, the whole refrigerator positioning was kind of given to us from BlackRock because they had the merchandisers in front, and it made a lot of sense. You could reach back and grab stock, and anything that came in from the trucks, you could fill into the racks, and it kind of flows nicely because then your latest milks are up front. You're not having to worry about, rotating stock. It just kind of flows in naturally the way it should. That works out great. And I think the positioning of that, Jonathan even made a comment. He says, I wish the merchandisers were a little closer to the counter. We left so much room thinking we had space and, which we did. But he says, I wish it was closer to the counter because so used to just take one step back and grabbing something out. Now they have to take actually 2 steps. But yeah, I mean, it's a really fun business to be in, really, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
One thing I learned way back when I first started this with Jack Brand was not knowing what to expect, having their success and the things that they were doing as a model helped out a lot, to be honest with you, because I had no idea what I was doing. I was a mechanical engineer trying to run a business now, which I've never done before in my life. So I learned a lot along the way. But the thing I think I learned up front in the beginning was to go into the business with a certain set of expectations and not something that's out of bounds. If you go into any business with out of bounds expectations, you're going to have nothing but trouble.
Yeah.
And,
Mhm.
finding that right balance of what you expect out of a business and where it can actually take you sometimes can be tough.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I feel like what I've seen in you guys that I've really appreciated about the way Coffee Republic does it and you and your family have handled it, a couple of different things actually has been one is you don't take shortcuts. I've noticed that about you that like you think things through from the end to the beginning. and set yourself up for success. That's one of the things I really appreciate about you. And then also just how you pull together as a family, and it's a family affair. Like you guys all lock arms and you get in there and you guys all get things done, and you kind of play to your strengths. And I know Robin helps some with the marketing end of things, and like, Jonathan is the operator. And I know that you've been a lot of the brains behind it and put wiring together all the back end pieces of it. But maybe you could speak to those things. So I think that's something that's pretty unique to you guys.
There's some truth to being not frugal, I guess is the
Yeah.
word. You can frugal yourself to death and kill yourself with
Right.
business. And again, I think that goes back to what I was saying about managing your expectations, because when we opened Coffee Republic, we had some money set aside to start a business. And there was buckets of dollars for each phase of the business startup. And one of them was marketing and, product purchases and equipment and everything else. In the early days, back in 2010, I wouldn't have known what to put in what bucket, but having been through it, once or twice now with opening 2 stores, you understand what the financial aspect of it is. And you need to pull the trigger on those things in order to be successful. And I think that, even now, here's an example. Even now, I've set aside some dollars for, an emergency fund, only because I know that there may be situations where some months we might not make our numbers depending on what's going on. So, being prepared for those kind of things is how, that's what takes the stress off. You've already allocated those things. Otherwise, if you go into a month where you're looking like you're going to be a $5,000 short on a payroll and you don't have the money somewhere, it's like that can be very stressful.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think managing your own expectations, and, I spent a lot of time putting stuff together on spreadsheets and showing the boys and said, if you're doing this kind of thing, then you have to have this over here. I'm mostly talking about labor, and labor is the biggest one. Labor will either make you or break you. Watching the labor numbers, back in 2010, after a year of being open with BlackRock, I was looking at the numbers and I was having to sell cars in order to make payroll, and I couldn't figure out
Stressful.
what the heck is going on here. And
Right.
finally I sat down and I spent some more time scrubbing numbers, and finally I came to Peach. I said, you know what? We're way overstaffed. Here's the deal. If you need to make this amount of money, then you need to be here for 150 hours a week. That's, it wasn't that bad, but I was telling them, hey, in order to offset payroll costs, which is our biggest dollar hit, you need to be in the stand X amount of hours. And if you're in the stand that many hours, I can pay you this, and, he saw that and said, okay, that's what I need to do, And so there was lots of holidays where he was the only one in there. Of course, it was like I said, 7x6. So we ran it solo with one guy for a long time in the evenings and in the mornings, early mornings, because we didn't have enough people to serve. There were hours that went by where we didn't see a single customer. After 6 months, I would say 6 months to a year, we had people waiting in line before we opened, and we had people begging to sell us a drink at 9-10 in the evening. Got to be open. You want to sell coffee, you got to be open.
Which is great. So obviously that was your first iteration down in Southern California, but it sounds like, do you feel like Great Falls was just ready for it? Do you think, because obviously you had a much different experience opening up this, you had those couple down in Southern California. And then obviously everybody that's been around coffee knows how BlackRock wound it up, and like, they bought you back out, and then you took that money and you went and you started your own thing. But it seems like in starting your own thing, stand number one actually was a much different experience than stand number one first iteration.
Yeah, it is. The numbers that we're doing coming out, of course, it's 10 years later, but the numbers that we're doing coming out of the chute, I haven't really done a good analysis of, just, cost of living and everything else that's higher now 10 years later, although we're in a market that's not quite the market that like it is in California. But yeah, the numbers that we came out with are better than what we did in the first time. And I'm telling you, I drove by our stand in Oceanside probably 3 months after opening to show my sister and my brother-in-law for the first time. And, we were doing a $300 Sunday.
Right. Right.
And I'm like, oh man, you can't even keep the doors open for that kind of money.
Right.
But we've never had any days like that here, in Great Falls. And I don't know, you learn a lot along the way. And I think part of it is Great Falls, they've never seen anything like this before.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
They've never, unique.
Yeah, they've never seen anything like this before. Everybody I talked to about what I was doing, they say, are you crazy? Why are you spending so much money doing this? Are you, coffee, it's coffee,
Right.
To give you an example, when we started working with some of the local advertisers, some of the catchphrases they came up with, you would think you were going to a Perco's freaking family restaurant.
Right.
They
Right.
said a cup of Joe, mud. Robin and I were just appalled at some of their first, offerings. It's like, wait a minute. Do you understand that we're trying to show a different quality and a whole different vibe than, you know, Perco's coffee?
Mhm.
Right.
Great Falls is probably not ready for us. We have a great loyal group of people that come and patronize us every day. Our response, our feedback is that we're getting, fantastic coffee, fantastic service, fantastic kids. We've got a great crew of, I don't know. I think he's retained about 5 or 6 of the original people. There's been a few fall offs and he's hired a few more. We've got some young kids. Montana has an interesting law. You can hire people all the way up down to 14 years old. And at 14, they're limited to how many hours they can work a week. But, it's not like California where you have to go in front of the governor to ask, please, can I hire you? It seems like that's what you have to ask. But no, we have a great crew and it seems like they enjoy working there and we're having a lot of fun.
And you're already talking number 2, right? Is that what the rumor
Yeah.
started?
Let's see. Back in just a month after we opened, we had an opportunity to buy this building. And I felt like I needed to jump on it because I knew prices were going to go nowhere but up.
Yeah.
And even if we couldn't start it right away, we'd just sit on the building until we could get enough money to put together to get number 2 open. Yeah. So we're a little bit short on the dollar side to do the whole thing. But we'll figure out something. We'll get it open.
That's the part I feel like is so impressive with you guys. And Drew, I feel like I've been dominating the whole thing. So anything you want to throw in to add, but I just think that's part of the part that I feel like that's you guys staying ahead of the curve, right? That's you guys looking ahead, having the foresight, not getting lost in the forest for the trees, but an opportunity opens up. And even if you can't move on that opportunity right now, you're going to take the opportunity. And then all that's doing is staging you for when you are ready and you're ready to go. And then you can turn the key, which is powerful.
With the first go around down in Southern California, I guess ignorance is bliss because, I knew nothing about anything about starting a business. To be honest with you, I worked in the engineering field under the guise of corporations all my life.
Yeah.
And risk was very low for me, right? I mean, it was not a big thing. So when my mother and father passed away, first my mother, then my father, they left me with a little bit of money. And I told my wife, I said, hey, we need to invest in something that's going to be long-term and that will give us residual income. And, when we did that, it was kind of a new thing for us, but having the cash to be able to get going and not being hindered by massive amounts of borrowed dollars. I mean, that's the only thing that kept me going. I think that's the only thing that I probably made it through without a heart attack. Because if you leverage yourself so high, I think that takes the fun out of the business. And again, if you're budgeting dollars and ahead of time, this is the money you're going to spend and you spend that money and then you start to see the results, you can see a plan coming together. If I didn't have the guidance of Jack, I got to be honest, Jack and Becca and Daniel at the time, and actually Jeremy's the one that came down and opened up with PJ and lived with PJ for 2 weeks, or actually almost a month.
Wow.
And they literally lived in our RV because we had a fifth wheel at the time, and Jeremy, it was parked in my driveway, and Jeremy and PJ would stay in the RV and they'd get up at, 4:00 in the morning, go open the store, and they were down there. But prior to grand opening, Jeremy came down, I think about 2 weeks before we had the grand opening, and he helped PJ set the whole thing up. That's kind of where that flow came from. It was different than what they were doing up north because they had more space, but it was probably the best flow plan for that size building. And that's kind of what we've taken is that, even though you get these big spaces, you don't want to do a lot of walking when you're cranking out coffee. You want to be standing, almost like traffic cops,
Yeah.
Yeah. You have everybody at the right station and you're just moving through it, which is good.
I love it. Well, hey, we're coming up on the top of the show, but I just want to thank you for bringing us in, allowing us come hang out with you guys, allowing us to be part of what you got going on in Montana. It's such an honor. I know Drew's hoping you're going to ask him back for the number 2 when you guys get ready to open that one up.
That's a given.
But anyway, Marty, thank you so much for joining us today. We
All
really
right.
appreciate the time.
Yeah, no problem. You guys have a great day.
All right, brother. You too. Good to see you.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
See you.
Thanks so much for joining us today. For those of you who are looking to become a coffee expert yourself, we offer an incredible, thorough training online for opening your first coffee drive-thru at www.myfirstdrivethru.coffee.